Let's talk about tracking. To track or not to track? That is the question. Tracking what foods and caloric drinks we ingest can be a useful way to estimate our daily energy intake. And there are multiple methods to maximize the accuracy and effectiveness of food tracking. More on that soon. However, tracking is not always 100% accurate for several reasons. While caloric intake is largely dictated by the foods that we eat, it can also be affected by what types of food we are eating. Thus, energy intake may not always be equal to energy utilization. For example, the body tends to absorb more energy from cooked and processed foods compared to raw or more minimally processed foods. Yet another reason to strive for a wide variety of wholesome, minimally processed foods as much as possible, especially if weight loss is the goal. It is also important to realize that food labels are often inaccurate by as much as 25% in terms of calories and macronutrient amounts. And restaurants may underestimate calories of meals by as much as 18%. Our human imperfections can also complicate things, as it has been shown that adults misremember and miscount food amounts by as much as 1,000 calories per day. That can really add up and cause some frustration in the long run. So, what is one to do? Weigh every morsel of food to the gram and live life tracking calories to the T? Not at all. Remember, the trick is to find the nutrition lifestyle that works best for you in the long run. If having a food scale with you wherever you go isn't going to be realistic, let's be honest, that definitely would not be realistic for 99% of us. There are other methods of tracking that allow for increased flexibility. Keep in mind that none of these methods are going to be entirely effortless. Some may be simpler than others, but their effectiveness relies on your ability to use them correctly and accurately. There may be some friction during the initial stages of building these habits as you increase your awareness of portion sizes and nutrient content of different types of food. But making choices that will be more conducive to your goals will become relatively second nature with practice and time. Let's talk about the no tracking necessary approach that I'm talking about. If you find that more regimented tracking is not for you, you may choose the non-tracking route. While you won't be aiming for very specific numbers to hit in terms of calories or macros, this approach does come with some fundamental guidelines. You want to make sure that you're including a serving of lean protein with every meal. You want to have 1 to 2 servings of fruits and veggies with every meal. Avoid snacking and instead focus on eating complete meals. Focus on eating wholesome, minimally processed foods most of the time, about 80% of the time. Emphasize having a bit more carbohydrates around your workouts, so pre and post. Try to eat 3 to 6 meals per day based on your schedule and preferences while following the guidelines above. Keep eating out to a minimum. If you plan on going out to eat, then adjust the rest of your day of eating accordingly. Fewer calories, higher satiety index. While you will not be required to weigh and record any food with the non-tracking approach, using the hand portion guide below will help you gauge your portion sizes more consistently and honestly. Let's face it, we all wish a serving size of peanut butter was a little bit bigger. In terms of tracking protein and calories, if you are comfortable with tracking a few numbers throughout the day, you may try the protein and calories method. This approach is slightly more hands-on than the non-tracking method described above, requiring daily tracking of protein intake and overall calories consumed during the day. As long as the protein target is attained, the athlete can choose which ratio of carbs and fats he or she would like to eat on that day, allowing for that increased flexibility. This method speaks to the fact that when adequate protein intake is attained, the remaining calories can be a variety of ratios of fat to carbs, and no one ratio has been deemed superior in terms of weight loss. The athlete should continue to strive for consistency with the 7 principles listed above. In terms of tracking macronutrients, If you are willing to weigh and record the majority of your food, tracking macronutrients may be a feasible option for you. With this tracking method, you have 3 very specific quantitative targets to aim for and meet daily for each macronutrient. We're talking about your carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Macronutrient targets are usually represented in terms of caloric percentages, which will provide some mathematical efforts on the athlete's part. For example, with a balanced macronutrient split, an athlete would typically aim for 40% of his or her total calories to come from carbs, 30% of calories to come from protein, and 30% of calories to come from fat each day. So if the calorie goal of that day is 2,000 calories, you must multiply your total calories by each percentage, then divide by the particular macronutrient caloric density. So, depending on the athlete's preferences, the macronutrient split can be adjusted. For instance, a lower carb approach may look more like 30% carbs, 40% protein, and 30% fat. In terms of macro ranges, hitting a specific macronutrient target each day is overwhelming to some and tedious to others. Some people who have moved away from rigid macro tracking have reported nearly force-feeding themselves at night in order to hit the macros. On the other hand, some athletes found that they were depriving themselves of food even when they were genuinely hungry, just because it would put them over their macros. For these reasons, our hybrid nutrition coaches will often recommend a range of macronutrients to hit rather than a specific number. While the magnitude of these ranges can vary based on the goals and experience level of the client, recommendations could range from 500 to 700 calories, 10 to 20 grams of each macro daily. The client then is allowed to be a bit more intuitive and flexible, eating more or less based on his or her hunger throughout the day. Reaching a specific minimum amount of protein is typically recommended, as is sticking to the 7 nutrition principles listed above. The 5 days on, 2 days off method. This strategy is a delicate balance of flexibility and structure, where the client eats in a relatively large deficit during the week, hence 5 days on and 2 off, and they eat closer to their maintenance calories on the weekends. This is often a feasible option for clients who have a traditional 9-to-5 work schedule during the week, but like to go out or drink or spend some time with family and friends during the weekends without having to closely monitor or track their intake. Although the name may suggest that the weekends are somewhat of a free-for-all, this strategy still requires that the client consistently follows the 7 principles listed at the beginning of the segment. It is possible to nullify the caloric deficit that was achieved during the week in just a few indulgent meals. So maintaining awareness of intake and healthy moderation is still paramount. If you are interested in a more involved, hands-on tracking approach, you will need some tools to get started. First, make sure you have some tools at hand, such as a food scale, measuring cup, and spoons. These items will help increase your accuracy with tracking food amounts and give you specific quantities to enter into your tracking app. While some people prefer food journaling with pen and paper, modern technology has made tracking way easier than ever before. Several of these apps have huge databases from countless foods from different brands, including many restaurant items, which further increases your accuracy with tracking. Many also use scanning features that allow you to use your camera to scan foods barcodes, which automatically searches for you the specific item, saving you time and effort in your tracking endeavors. In terms of apps, MyFitnessPal is the most commonly used tracking app, but there are some others like LifeSum, Fitbit, and MyPlate that offer similar services. Download a few of them, try them, and see which one you like best. Keep in mind that the accuracy of your app is only as good as the accuracy of your entries, which is why your measurements are important. Logging a deep fried chicken drumstick as a raw, boneless, skinless chicken thigh is going to create some significant discrepancies. So when in doubt, try to log your food as accurately as possible. I do want to point out that tracking should never become an obsession. If you feel like your relationship with tracking food is becoming unhealthy, or that you may be showing signs of developing an eating disorder, you should definitely consult your physician.